Sophia Grant, a powerful CEO, has everything: wealth, success, and respect. But her world is shaken when she sees a homeless man outside her office and realizes he's Liam, the boy who once protected her during her darkest days. Now, faced with his fall from grace, she must decide, will she risk everything to repay the kindness that saved her? Stick with us as this emotional journey unfolds. You won't believe how it ends. Sophia Grant adjusted the lapels of her sleek black blazer as she stepped out of the town car and onto the bustling sidewalk. The glass facade of Grant and Associates loomed above her, a shimmering monument to the life she had meticulously crafted. The air was crisp, carrying the metallic hum of the city, a sound she had come to associate with power and progress. Her assistant, Marla, hurried to catch up, balancing a tablet and a coffee cup. Your meeting with the board is at 9, and the press wants a statement about the merger by noon. Marla rattled off, her tone as brisk as her steps. Sophia nodded absently, her focus already sharpening on the day ahead. But as she approached the building, something caught her attention. A figure hunched near the entrance, a stark contrast to the polished surroundings. He sat on the cold pavement, wrapped in layers of tattered clothing, his head bowed low. A cardboard sign rested against his knees, the handwritten plea barely legible: hungry and homeless. Anything helps. Sophia's heels clicked to a halt. The man lifted his head, and time seemed to freeze. His gaunt face, framed by unkempt hair and a scruffy beard, was older but unmistakable. Her breath caught in her throat. It was him, Liam Carter, the boy who had once shielded her from bullies in their crumbling neighborhood, the boy who had stood tall when no one else would. Now, he sat before her, a shadow of the person she remembered. Marla tugged at her sleeve, snapping Sophia out of her daze. "Everything okay, Miss Grant?" Sophia hesitated, then gave a curt nod. "Yes, let's go." Inside the elevator, her thoughts churned. How had this happened? The last she heard, Liam had been working as a carpenter. What had reduced him to this? The questions nagged at her throughout the day, distracting her even during the most critical meetings. By evening, as the city lights glowed like stars reflected in the skyscrapers, Sophia found herself standing by her office window, her reflection merging with the world outside. Memories of her childhood surfaced, of Liam's laughter, his unyielding spirit. The thought of leaving him in that state clawed at her conscience. "Marla," she called, reaching for her coat. "Reschedule tomorrow's first meeting. I need to take care of something." The morning air bit at Sophia's cheeks as she walked purposefully toward the same spot where she had seen him the day before. Her polished boots contrasted sharply with the damp, cracked pavement beneath them. And there he was, Liam, still sitting on the cold ground, the weight of the world etched into his features. Sophia hesitated, then stepped closer. "Liam," she called softly. He looked up, his eyes narrowing in confusion before recognition dawned. "Sophia." His voice was hoarse, disbelieving. "It's been a long time," she said, offering a tentative smile. "Do you remember me?" Liam chuckled dryly, the sound tinged with bitterness. "Hard to forget someone like you. What's a CEO doing slumming out here?" Her smile faltered, but she pressed on. "I saw you yesterday, and I couldn't just walk by." "Well, you could have," he muttered, looking away. "Most people do." Sophia knelt slightly, ignoring the curious glances from passers-by. "What happened to you, Liam?" "The last I heard, you were working as a carpenter." Liam's jaw tightened, his eyes flickering with a mixture of shame and anger. Life happened. A false charge, lost work, and one thing after another until this became my reality. She didn't push him for details. Instead, she said, "Let me help you." "I can." "No," he interrupted sharply. "I don't need your pity, Sophia." "It's not pity," she insisted. "You helped me once, more times than I can count. Let me return the favor." Liam stood abruptly, towering over her. "You think this is some kind of debt you can pay off, just because you've got money now?" Sophia stood as well, trying to maintain her composure. "That's not what this is about. I. Save it, he said, cutting her off again. You don't owe me anything, Sophia. Go back to your perfect life. With that, he walked away, leaving her standing on the sidewalk, stunned. But as she watched him disappear into the crowd, determination began to take root. She wouldn't give up, not this time. That evening, back at her office, Sophia called Marla into the room. Find out everything you can about Liam Carter, she instructed. Where he stays is history. All of it. Marla hesitated, but nodded. Understood, Ms. Grant. Sophia stared at the city skyline, her reflection resolute. She didn't just want to help Liam. She needed to. Not out of guilt, but because he had once shown her that even the weakest can find strength in others. Now, it was her turn to remind him of that. Sophia sat alone in her penthouse that night, staring at the faint glow of her tablet. The report Marla had compiled on Liam was thorough and devastating. Liam Carter, former carpenter, charged with theft 5 years ago. Despite the lack of evidence, his conviction had cost him his career. The company he worked for folded shortly after, leaving him without references, connections, or recourse. Without the ability to find stable work, Liam had spiraled into poverty, ultimately landing on the streets. Sophia sighed, the guilt gnawing at her. Memories of their childhood rose unbidden. How Liam had shielded her from the cruel kids in their neighborhood. How he'd shared his lunches when her family couldn't afford meals. He'd been her protector, and she hadn't repaid his kindness. For years, she had pushed those memories aside, focusing on building her empire. Now, those suppressed memories demanded her attention, as though Liam's struggles were a penance she hadn't yet faced. The next morning, Sophia confided in Rachel Yates, her COO and longtime friend. Rachel was pragmatic, blunt, and above all, fiercely loyal to Sophia. Still, Sophia braced herself for the inevitable criticism. I get it. You feel guilty, Rachel said, leaning back in her chair after Sophia recounted her encounter with Liam. But getting involved with someone like that, it's risky, Sophia. Your reputation, your company, can't handle that kind of scrutiny right now. It's not about my reputation, Sophia countered, her voice tinged with frustration. This is personal. Rachel raised an eyebrow. And that's exactly why it's dangerous. You're letting your emotions cloud your judgment. Sophia leaned forward, her tone firm. He was there for me when no one else was, Rachel. I can't just ignore him. Rachel sighed, crossing her arms. Fine, but tread carefully. If this backfires, it won't just be you who gets hurt. With Rachel's cautious blessing, Sophia felt emboldened. She needed to see Liam again, this time on her terms. Sophia waited at the diner, her fingers drumming lightly against the chipped Formica table. She'd chosen a modest place on the edge of town, far from the prying eyes of reporters or her colleagues. She wasn't here as CEO Sophia Grant. She was here as the girl who owed Liam Carter everything. When Liam finally walked in, his posture was stiff, his eyes scanning the room as though bracing for judgment. Sophia waved him over, and after a moment of hesitation, he joined her. This better not be some charity stunt, he said, his tone defensive as he slid into the booth. It's not, Sophia said, keeping her voice calm. I just want to talk. No strings, no pity. Just two old friends catching up. Liam scoffed but didn't leave. Friends, is that what we were? Sophia winced at the bitterness in his tone, but pressed on. I know I let you down, Liam. I left our neighborhood and never looked back. I was so focused on getting out that I didn't stop to think about what, or who, I was leaving behind. Liam stared at her, his expression unreadable. You didn't owe anyone anything, Sophia. Not then. Not now. I disagree, she said quietly. You stood up for me when no one else did. You gave me strength when I didn't have any. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for you. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken memories. Finally, Liam sighed, his shoulders slumping. You don't get it. I don't need your guilt. I need. He trailed off, his gaze distant. What do you need? Sophia asked gently. I don't know, he admitted. But it's not this. Before she could respond, the waitress arrived with their food. The interruption seemed to break the tension, and for a moment, they ate in silence. As the plates emptied, Liam finally spoke again. You want to help me? Fine. Here's your chance. I need a job, Sophia. Not a handout. A real job. Something I can earn. Sophia nodded, her mind already racing. Done. Liam frowned, as though surprised by her quick agreement. Just like that. Yes, she said firmly. But on one condition. You have to let me help you get back on your feet first. A job won't matter if you're still living on the streets. Liam looked at her warily. You mean you want me to stay in one of your penthouses or something? Sophia smiled faintly. Not quite, but I have a guest house, private, comfortable, no strings attached. Just a place to get you started. You can leave whenever you want. Liam hesitated, his pride warring with his desperation. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but this is temporary. Agreed, Sophia said, extending her hand. Liam shook it reluctantly, his grip firm but hesitant. As they parted ways, Sophia felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Liam arrived at Sophia's estate late that evening. The sleek black car she'd sent to pick him up felt out of place in the world he inhabited, drawing curious stares from others on the street. He had spent the ride with his hands gripping the seat, his nerves rattling more with each mile that separated him from the streets he knew. The Grant estate loomed ahead like a world apart, a sprawling mansion with well-manicured lawns and lights glowing warmly through the large windows. When the car pulled to a stop in front of the guest house, Liam hesitated before stepping out. The house was smaller than the mansion, but still far more luxurious than anything he'd lived in before. Sophia greeted him at the door, her expression calm but attentive. It's not much, she said with a slight smile, gesturing inside. Liam raised an eyebrow. Not much. It's nicer than the mayor's house. Sophia chuckled softly, but said nothing. She showed him around. The small kitchen stocked with essentials, the cozy living area, and the bedroom, which was simple but comfortable. Liam's shoulders seemed to ease slightly as he took it all in, though his wariness remained. You'll have privacy, Sophia said as they returned to the living room. Stay as long as you need, but no pressure. You can leave whenever you want. Liam nodded, his voice quiet. Thanks. Sophia smiled gently, then turned to leave, giving him space to settle in. But as she crossed the lawn back to her own house, her phone buzzed in her pocket. The name on the screen made her stop cold. Eric Blaine. Sophia hesitated, then answered. Eric, what do you want? His voice was as smooth as ever, but there was an edge to it that set her on edge. Sophia, I heard a little rumor. Something about you taking in a homeless man. Care to explain? Sophia's grip on the phone tightened. I didn't realize my personal life was any of your business. Oh? But it is, Eric said, his tone light but threatening. When your reputation affects your company's standing, it becomes everyone's business. Investors don't like controversy, Sophia. Cut the pretense, Eric. If you're calling to gloat, get over with. Eric laughed, the sound grating. Relax. I'm just looking out for you. Wouldn't want all your hard work to go to waste over questionable decisions. Sophia's jaw clenched, but she forced herself to stay calm. Thanks for the concern, Eric. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have better things to do than entertain your games. She hung up before he could respond, her heart racing. Eric had always been a snake, but the fact that he already knew about Liam sent a shiver of unease through her. She needed to tread carefully. The next morning, Sophia stopped by the guest house to check on Liam. He was sitting at the small kitchen table, sipping coffee from a mug she'd left for him. The wariness in his eyes had softened slightly, though his guard was still firmly in place. How's the place treating you? She asked, leaning against the doorframe. Liam shrugged. It's nice. Feels strange. Strange how? Like I don't belong here, he admitted, his voice low. Sophia stepped closer, her expression earnest. You do, Liam. You've been through hell, but you're here now. This is a fresh start. Liam didn't respond, but she could see the tension in his shoulders ease just a fraction. "I have an idea," she said, sitting across from him. "I've been thinking about your skills, your woodworking. If we use that as a starting point, I could set you up with some resources. Get your name out there." Liam frowned. "You mean like a business?" "Exactly," Sophia said, her enthusiasm growing. "You're talented, Liam. People pay a fortune for custom furniture. This could be your way back." He leaned back in his chair, his expression skeptical. "And what's in it for you?" Sophia's smile faded slightly. "Nothing. I just want to help." Liam studied her for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. "All right, but I want to do this on my terms. No handouts, no favors." "Deal," Sophia said, extending her hand. He shook it, and for the first time, she saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Over the next few days, Sophia threw herself into the project. She arranged for materials, rented a small workshop nearby, and even helped create a website to showcase Liam's work. Slowly but surely, Liam began to immerse himself in the work, the spark of his old passion reigniting. But progress was slow. Liam's confidence wavered, and moments of self-doubt crept in. Sophia did her best to encourage him, but the weight of his past was a constant shadow. One evening, as Liam worked late in the workshop, Sophia stopped by to check on him. He was sanding the edge of a table, his movements precise, but almost mechanical. "Looks great," she said, stepping inside. Liam glanced up, his expression tired. "It's fine," Sophia frowned. "You're allowed to be proud of your work, you know." Liam set down the sander and ran a hand through his hair. "Pride doesn't mean much when you've got nothing to show for it. You're building something, Liam. That counts for a lot." He didn't respond, but she could see the turmoil in his eyes. "You're not alone in this," Sophia said softly. "I'm here. We'll figure out together." Liam looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Thanks, Sophia." As she left the workshop that night, Sophia felt a cautious optimism. Liam was starting to trust her, but she knew the road ahead would be far from easy, especially with Eric Blaine lurking in the background. Liam woke up in the guest house to the sound of birds chirping outside the window, a sound he hadn't associated with mornings in years. For once, he didn't wake up to the cold pavement beneath him or the dull ache of hunger. Despite this newfound comfort, unease lingered in his chest. At the workshop later that day, he worked in silence, sanding the frame of a chair he'd been commissioned to create. Sophia had been true to her word. She kept her distance, letting him work without interference. But Liam couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that his past was waiting to resurface, ready to sabotage any hope of progress. Sophia, on the other hand, was deep in research. From the files Marla had gathered and her own investigation, she pieced together the details of Liam's conviction. The charges had been based on a flimsy accusation: theft from the construction company he'd worked for. No hard evidence had ever been presented, but his case had been fast-tracked through a system that showed no mercy to those without resources. What struck Sophia the most was a name that appeared repeatedly in the case files: Eric Blaine. His company had been indirectly involved in the project Liam worked on, supplying materials for the construction. Sophia couldn't ignore the connection. Was Eric's involvement just a coincidence, or was there something more insidious at play? She arranged a meeting with Rachel, bringing the files with her. The two women pored over the documents in Sophia's office, Rachel's sharp mind working quickly to identify inconsistencies. "This doesn't add up," Rachel muttered, pointing to one of the reports. "The timing of the charges, the lack of evidence. It's like they wanted him out of the way." Sophia nodded. "And Eric's company benefited from the fallout. They acquired the construction firm's assets for pennies after the case destroyed its reputation." Rachel leaned back, crossing her arms. "So, what's your plan? Confront Eric?" "Not yet," Sophia said, her tone firm. "I need more proof. If I go after him without solid evidence, he'll destroy both me and Liam." Rachel hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but be careful. Eric's not the type to play fair." Meanwhile, Liam's frustration grew. The workshop had become both a refuge and a source of anxiety. orders trickled in, and while he poured his heart into every piece, self-doubt continued to plague him. Every mistake felt magnified, every delay a failure. Sophia stopped by one afternoon to check on his progress. She found him sitting on a stool, staring at an unfinished table with a deep frown. "Everything okay?" she asked, stepping inside. Liam didn't look up. "It's fine." Sophia tilted her head, studying him. "It doesn't look fine," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's just, what if I'm kidding myself, Sophia? What if this doesn't work? What if I mess everything up again?" Sophia walked over and placed a hand on the table. "You're not the same person you were back then, Liam. And even if you stumble, you're not alone in this." He finally looked at her, his expression conflicted. "Why are you doing this? Really? Is it guilt?" Sophia paused, caught off guard by the question. "It started as guilt," she admitted. "But now, I just want to see you succeed. I believe in you, Liam." Her honesty seemed to catch him off guard. He nodded slowly, his shoulders relaxing slightly. Over the next few days, the tension between them began to ease. Liam started to open up, sharing bits and pieces of his past. He told Sophia about his love for woodworking, how it had been his escape growing up in their rough neighborhood. He spoke about the joy of creating something with his hands, of seeing raw materials transformed into something beautiful and useful. Sophia listened intently, her respect for him growing with each story. She saw the depth of his passion, the resilience that had kept him going despite everything. But even as their bond strengthened, external pressures loomed. Eric's subtle threats grew louder. Cryptic emails and veiled remarks at industry events reminded Sophia that he was watching. One evening, as she sat in her office going over documents, her phone buzzed with a notification. An anonymous email popped up on her screen. "Careful who you trust, Sophia. Some secrets are better left buried." Her stomach twisted, but she refused to let fear control her. If Eric thought he could intimidate her into backing off, he was sorely mistaken. Sophia leaned against the podium, her gaze sweeping across the crowd gathered in the grand hall. The fundraiser she had organized to promote Liam's woodworking business was her attempt to merge his talent with her influence. The event had drawn a mix of potential clients, investors, and reporters eager to see what the CEO of Grant & Associates was up to. Liam stood off to the side, dressed in a suit that, while well-fitted, looked foreign on him. His eyes darted nervously over the room, his hands gripping the edge of a table displaying his carefully crafted furniture. The centerpiece of the collection, a sleek, handcrafted dining table, gleamed under the soft lighting, a testament to his skill and perseverance. Sophia stepped to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. Every piece you see here tells a story, not just of craftsmanship, but of resilience and second chances." She gestured toward Liam. "This is Liam Carter, the artist behind these works. His story is one of overcoming adversity, and I'm proud to support his journey." The audience responded with polite applause, though Sophia noticed a few skeptical glances. Liam's face remained impassive, though his grip on the table tightened. As guests milled around, Sophia stayed close to Liam, offering introductions and encouraging him to speak about his work. But before long, she noticed murmurs spreading through the room, the air growing heavy with something unspoken. Then it hit. A reporter approached Sophia, holding up a tablet. "Ms. Grant, care to comment on this?" Sophia froze as she read the headline, "Grant CEO's protege, ex-convict with a shady past." Below, it was a picture of Liam from his arrest years ago, his face weary and defeated. Liam saw it too. His face went pale, his breathing quickening as guests turned to whisper and exchange glances. A few walked out, and Sophia's heart sank. The media had found him, and worse, someone had leaked his record. Sophia stepped in front of the reporter, her voice firm. "Liam's past doesn't define him. His work and his character do. If you have any questions, direct them to me." But the damage was done. Liam pushed through the crowd, his expression dark, and disappeared out the side door. Sophia caught up to him in the parking lot, where he was pacing, his fists clenched. "I told you this would happen. He spat, his voice tight with anger. I told you I didn't want this kind of attention. Liam, I didn't know, Sophia began, but he cut her off. Of course you didn't. You live in your perfect world where second chances are just a PR stunt. But for people like me, they don't exist. That's not fair, Sophia snapped. I've been doing everything I can to help you. Help me. Liam laughed bitterly. You just put my past on display for everyone to see. How is that helping? He turned and walked away, leaving Sophia standing alone under the dim parking lot lights. The next morning, Sophia sat in her office, her fingers drumming against her desk. The fallout from the fundraiser was worse than she feared. News outlets were buzzing with stories about Liam's criminal past and questioning her judgment for associating with him. Investors were skittish, and Rachel wasn't holding back her concerns. This is exactly what I warned you about, Rachel said, pacing in front of Sophia's desk. You've put your entire reputation, and the company's, on the line for someone who doesn't want your help. Sophia's jaw tightened. I'm not giving up on him. Rachel sighed. You're risking everything for a man who's already walked out on you. Is it worth it? Sophia's gaze hardened. Yes. Because it's not just about him. It's about doing what's right. Later that day, Sophia found Liam at the workshop. He was sitting on a stool, staring blankly at a half-finished piece of furniture. The tension between them was palpable, but Sophia approached cautiously. Liam, she said softly, I'm sorry about what happened. I didn't want this for you. He didn't look at her. It doesn't matter. You can't undo it. You're right, she admitted. But you don't have to face it alone. Liam finally looked up, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and defeat. Why do you care so much, Sophia? Why not just let me go? Because you're worth fighting for, she said simply. I believe in you, even if you don't. Her words seemed to break through the wall he had built. He nodded slowly, his shoulders slumping. I don't know if I can do this. You can, Sophia said firmly, and I'll be here every step of the way. Over the next few weeks, Sophia worked tirelessly to repair the damage. She leveraged her connections to shift the narrative, highlighting Liam's talent and resilience instead of his past. Rachel, despite her earlier reservations, threw her weight behind the campaign, recognizing that protecting Sophia's reputation meant protecting Liam's as well. Liam, too, began to push through his doubts. Orders started coming in again, and with Sophia's encouragement, he took on more ambitious projects. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. One evening, as they locked up the workshop, Liam turned to Sophia. Thank you for not giving up on me. She smiled. You didn't give up on me all those years ago. I'm just returning the favor. The storm from the fundraiser fallout had mostly calmed, but Liam was still hesitant to fully embrace his second chance. He kept his distance from Sophia, wary of trusting too much. Meanwhile, Sophia focused on rebuilding his reputation and salvaging her own. Her days were consumed by meetings, interviews, and carefully coordinated PR campaigns. One afternoon, Rachel barged into Sophia's office, her face tight with frustration. She tossed a folder onto Sophia's desk, the pages inside spilling out to reveal media headlines and anonymous tips. Sophia, this isn't going away, Rachel said, her voice sharp. You've managed to spin the narrative for now, but people are still digging. They want to know who Liam really is, and they won't stop until they get something juicier. Sophia frowned. I've handled the media before, Rachel. This isn't the first time my decisions have been questioned. Rachel crossed her arms, her expression hard. This isn't just about your decisions, Sophia. This is about Liam's past. If you want to keep the public on your side, you need to control the story. Sophia's eyes narrowed. What are you suggesting? Rachel hesitated, then sighed. Liam's story could work in your favor if it's framed the right way. People love a redemption arc. If we tell his story, it might shift public opinion. Sophia leaned back in her chair, her jaw tightening. That's not your decision to make, Rachel. Liam deserves his privacy. I know, Rachel said, her voice softer now. But think about what's at stake here. If we don't take control of this, someone else will, and they won't be kind. Sophia's instinct was to refuse, But Rachel's words lingered. She spent the night wrestling with the idea, torn between protecting Liam's privacy and safeguarding everything she had worked for. The decision was taken out of her hands the next morning. Liam arrived at the workshop with a newspaper in hand, his face pale. He threw it onto the table, the bold headline staring back at Sophia, Liam Carter's fight for redemption, the CEO who won't give up on him. The article detailed Liam's past, from his conviction to his struggles on the streets, painting him as a tragic figure saved by Sophia's benevolence. Sophia's stomach dropped. She didn't need to read the byline to know where the leak had come from. "Rachel," Liam asked, his voice sharp. "Was this your idea?" Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "She acted without consulting me." Liam's expression darkened. "I trusted you, Sophia. I told you things I've never told anyone, and you let her use me as a PR tool. It wasn't my decision," Sophia said, her voice firm. "And I would never betray your trust. But now that it's out there, we can use it to help you." "Help me?" Liam's laugh was bitter. "You think this helps me? This just puts my mistakes on display for the world to judge." Sophia stepped closer, her tone softer. "Liam, listen to me. We can turn this into something positive. People will see your resilience, your talent. This doesn't have to define you." Liam shook his head, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and hurt. "It already does, and it always will." He walked out, leaving Sophia standing in the workshop, her heart heavy. Sophia didn't have time to dwell on Liam's reaction. The article had stirred up more than public sympathy. It had also drawn the attention of Eric Blaine. That afternoon, an envelope arrived at Sophia's office. It contained no note, only a series of photographs. Liam at the fundraiser, Sophia leaving the workshop, and a final image that made her blood run cold. It was a photo of a document, a forged contract bearing Liam's signature, dated 5 years ago. The implication was clear. Eric was trying to frame Liam again, this time to ruin him, and by association, Sophia. Sophia immediately called Rachel. "We have a problem. Eric is trying to destroy Liam again." Rachel frowned. "How do you know it's Eric?" "I recognize the document," Sophia said. "It's from the construction project Liam was accused of stealing from. Eric's company was involved back then, and he's clearly trying to tie Liam to it again." Rachel hesitated. "Do you have proof?" "Not yet," Sophia admitted. "But I'm going to get it." Sophia spent the next few days digging into the old case files, determined to find a connection between Eric and the false charges against Liam. The deeper she dug, the clearer the pattern became. Eric had orchestrated the entire setup to drive the construction company into bankruptcy, allowing him to buy its assets for a fraction of their value. But finding proof was another matter. Every trail seemed to end in dead ends or redacted documents, leaving Sophia frustrated and exhausted. One evening, as she sifted through yet another stack of files, her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Meet me at the office." "I found something." Sophia arrived to find Rachel waiting with a folder in hand. "I've been looking into Eric's financials," Rachel said. "There's a payment here, a large sum transferred to a key witness in Liam's case just days before his conviction." Sophia's eyes widened. "This is it. This is what we need." Rachel nodded. "But it's not enough to take him down. Eric's good at covering his tracks. If we're going to expose him, we need more." Sophia set her jaw. "Then we'll get more, whatever it takes." Sophia paced her office, the weight of Rachel's discovery pressing down on her. The payment tied to Liam's false conviction was enough to connect Eric to the case, but not enough to take him down completely. She needed undeniable proof to protect Liam and stop Eric from striking again. Meanwhile, Liam had retreated further into himself, avoiding the workshop and Sophia entirely. He had moved out of the guest house without warning, leaving behind only a short note. "Thanks for everything, but this isn't my fight." Sophia's chest tightened as she read the words. She couldn't blame him for wanting to disappear. His life had been ripped apart by a system that had treated him as disposable. Still, her frustration burned. Eric's actions weren't just about Liam anymore. They were a direct threat to everything she stood for. Sophia called Rachel into her office. "If we're going to bring Eric down, We need to find Liam. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Do you think he'll even talk to you after everything that's happened? I don't know, Sophia admitted. But I have to try. Sophia spent hours calling shelters, soup kitchens, and hospitals, retracing Liam's steps from his life on the streets. Finally, she found him at a community center on the outskirts of town, sitting in the back row of an overcrowded job training seminar. He looked thinner, more tired, but his eyes still held the spark of the man she remembered. When the seminar ended, Sophia approached him cautiously. Liam. He turned, his expression unreadable. What are you doing here? I came to find you, she said, her voice steady. We need your help. Liam laughed bitterly. We. Both, she admitted. Eric is trying to frame you again. Rachel and I found proof that ties him to your conviction, but we can't take him down without you. Liam's jaw tightened. I told you, I'm done. I'm not going to let you drag me back into this mess. You're already in it, Liam, Sophia said, stepping closer. Eric isn't going to stop until he ruins both of us. If we don't fight back, he wins. Liam hesitated, his shoulders slumping. I don't know if I have it in me, Sophia. I've been fighting my whole life, and I'm tired. Sophia's voice softened. You don't have to do this alone. Let me stand with you. Liam studied her for a long moment, then sighed. All right, what do we do? Sophia, Rachel, and Liam formed an uneasy alliance as they worked to uncover more evidence against Eric. Rachel tracked financial records while Sophia used her connections to dig into Eric's dealings. Liam reluctantly agreed to speak publicly about his experiences, knowing his testimony could sway public opinion. As they worked, tensions flared. Liam's frustration with the process often clashed with Rachel's pragmatism, and Sophia found herself caught in the middle. One night, as they pored over documents in Sophia's office, Liam slammed his hands on the table. This isn't going to work, he said, his voice tight. Eric has too much power. He'll bury us before we even get close. Giving up isn't an option, Rachel snapped. If you want justice, you have to fight for it. Easy for you to say, Liam shot back. You haven't lived through what I have. Enough. Sophia's voice cut through the argument, silencing them both. We're all on the same side here. Let's focus on what we can control. The tension lingered, but they managed to refocus. Over the next few days, their efforts began to pay off. Rachel uncovered a series of forged documents that tied Eric directly to the false charges against Liam. Sophia arranged for a private investigator to interview key witnesses from the case, many of whom revealed they had been coerced or bribed. But Eric wasn't sitting idle. He launched his own counteroffensive, leaking false information to the press about Sophia's involvement with Liam. Headlines painted her as reckless and accused her of using Liam's story as a publicity stunt. The final blow came when Eric sent an anonymous tip to the media, claiming that Sophia had known about Liam's conviction all along and had deliberately used it to promote her business. The resulting scandal left Sophia's company in turmoil, with investors threatening to pull out. Sophia sat in her office that night, staring at the city lights. For the first time, doubt crept into her mind. Was she fighting a battle she couldn't win? Liam found her there, his presence a quiet but steady force. I heard about the investors, he said, sitting across from her. I'm sorry. Sophia shook her head. It's not your fault. This was my choice, but you're paying the price for it, Liam said, his voice heavy. You've risked everything for me, and I've done nothing but push you away. Sophia looked at him, her eyes filled with determination. You've done more than you realize, Liam. You've reminded me why I started this fight in the first place. It's not about business or reputation. It's about doing what's right. Liam nodded slowly. Then let's finish this. Sophia stood at the edge of the stage, the bright lights of the press conference illuminating the sea of reporters and cameras before her. The weight of what was about to happen pressed heavily on her shoulders, but her resolve remained firm. Beside her, Liam adjusted the microphone nervously, his hands trembling slightly. This moment would either break them or finally bring justice. The private investigator Sophia had hired had uncovered the final piece of the puzzle, a signed affidavit from one of Eric's former employees, confirming that Eric had orchestrated Liam's conviction and used his company's resources to forge evidence. With this testimony, coupled with the financial records Rachel uncovered, they had enough to expose Eric for the manipulative fraud he was. Sophia took a deep breath and stepped up to the podium. The room buzzed with anticipation as reporters readied their notepads and cameras zoomed in on her. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steady. "Today, I want to address the recent media coverage surrounding myself and Liam Carter." She gestured to Liam, who stood tall beside her, his nervous energy replaced by a quiet determination. Liam's story is one of resilience and strength, but it's also a story of injustice. Years ago, he was falsely accused and convicted of a crime he didn't commit. That conviction destroyed his career, his reputation, and his life. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but Sophia pressed on. "We have uncovered evidence that proves his conviction was orchestrated by Eric Blaine. Mr. Blaine not only fabricated evidence, but also used his influence to ensure Liam would take the fall, allowing him to profit from the destruction of a company and an innocent man's life." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in before continuing. "Today, we're here to set the record straight and demand accountability. Mr. Carter deserves justice, and we won't stop until he gets it." Liam stepped forward, his voice clear but heavy with emotion. "I've spent years trying to rebuild my life after what happened. For a long time, I believed I didn't deserve a second chance. But I'm here now because someone believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. And I won't let people like Eric Blaine continue to ruin lives for their own gain." Sophia's legal team distributed copies of the evidence to the reporters, and the room erupted in flashes and questions. Liam and Sophia exchanged a glance, an unspoken acknowledgement of how far they had come. But the battle wasn't over yet. Eric Blaine's response came swiftly. That evening, he appeared on a national news program, denying the accusations and painting Sophia and Liam as desperate individuals seeking attention. He dismissed the evidence as fabricated and claimed the accusations were part of a smear campaign. But the public tide had already begun to turn. The press latched onto the story, uncovering additional scandals tied to Eric's business dealings. Social media exploded with support for Liam, his story resonating with people who saw him as a symbol of perseverance against systemic injustice. Despite the growing support, Sophia's company faced continued fallout. Investors pulled out of key projects, and her board of directors questioned her leadership. The mounting pressure pushed Sophia to make a difficult decision. At the next board meeting, she stood before her team with a calm determination. "I understand your concerns, and I take full responsibility for the risks I've taken. But those risks were necessary to stand up for what's right. I won't compromise my values to protect the company's image." The room was silent as her words sank in. Finally, one of the senior board members spoke. "What are you suggesting, Ms. Grant?" Sophia took a deep breath. "I'm stepping down as CEO. It's the best choice for the company and for me." The announcement sent shockwaves through the room, but Sophia felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time in years, she was making a decision that wasn't driven by ambition or fear. Later that evening, she met Liam at the workshop. He was sanding the edge of a table, his movements slow and deliberate. When she told him about her resignation, he looked up, his brow furrowed. "You're giving up everything," he said quietly. Sophia shook her head. "I'm not giving up. I'm starting over." They sat in silence for a while, the hum of the workshop machines filling the air. Finally, Liam spoke. "I don't know how to thank you for what you've done for me." "You don't need to," Sophia said, smiling. "Just keep building. That's all the thanks I need." Sophia leaned against the doorway of the newly finished nonprofit center, the first tangible result of her partnership with Liam. The once abandoned warehouse now stood as a vibrant space dedicated to helping others like Liam, individuals who had been failed by the system but still harbored potential and resilience. Inside, Liam was surrounded by a small group of trainees, teaching them the basics of woodworking. His voice carried across the room, steady and confident, a far cry from the guarded man Sophia had met months ago. His hands moved with purpose, guiding the trainees as they worked on their first projects. The smile on his face was genuine, something she hadn't seen in years. Sophia felt a swell of pride. Together, they had turned pain into purpose, creating a space that offered second chances not just for Liam, but for countless others. The nonprofit had already gained attention, with donations pouring in and local businesses offering their support. Later, Liam joined Sophia in the break room, wiping sawdust from his hands. "I still can't believe this is real," he said, looking around the bustling space. Sophia smiled. "You made this happen, Liam. Your story inspired people." He shook his head. "I couldn't have done it without you. You gave me the chance to rebuild." She laughed softly. "We rebuilt together, and we're just getting started." On a quiet Saturday morning, Sophia and Liam returned to their old neighborhood, a place neither of them had seen in years. The crumbling buildings and overgrown lots were hauntingly familiar, yet tinged with a sense of bittersweet nostalgia. They visited the park where they had played as children, the swings now rusted and the slide covered in graffiti. Liam paused, staring at the spot where he had once stood between Sophia and a group of bullies, fists clenched and determination etched into his young face. "You were fearless back then," Sophia said, breaking the silence. Liam chuckled. "I wasn't fearless. I was scared out of my mind, but I couldn't let them hurt you." She smiled. "You were my hero." They walked through the neighborhood, sharing stories and laughing about moments they had long forgotten. But as they passed the house where Liam had grown up, his expression darkened. "It's empty now," he said quietly. "After my mom died, there was nothing left to hold on to." Sophia placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've come so far, Liam, and you're building something even better now." He nodded, the weight of the past lifting slightly. "I guess I am." As the nonprofit gained momentum, Sophia and Liam's partnership deepened. Late one evening, after a long day at the center, they sat together on the porch of the guest house. The air was warm, filled with the soft hum of crickets and the occasional rustle of leaves. Liam glanced at Sophia, his expression uncharacteristically nervous. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," she said, turning to face him. He took a deep breath. "Do you ever think about what could have happened if things had been different?" "If I hadn't," he trailed off, gesturing vaguely to the world they had left behind. Sophia tilted her head, her gaze steady. "I think about it all the time, but I don't regret where we are now. Everything we've been through brought us here." Liam nodded, his hands fidgeting. "What I'm trying to say is, I don't want to imagine a future without you." Her breath caught as he pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a simple but elegant ring. "Sophia Grant, will you take a leap of faith with me?" Tears filled her eyes as she smiled. "Yes, Liam, always." The wedding was small and intimate, held in the very nonprofit center they had built together. The room was filled with friends, supporters, and the trainees who had become like family. It was a celebration not just of their love, but of the journey they had shared, the challenges they had faced, and the triumphs they had earned. Liam stood at the altar, his nervous energy replaced by a quiet confidence. When Sophia walked down the aisle, her smile radiant, the room seemed to glow with warmth. As they exchanged vows, Liam's voice carried a weight of sincerity. "You gave me a second chance when I didn't believe I deserved one. You reminded me of who I am and what I can be. I promise to spend the rest of my life proving that your faith in me wasn't misplaced." Sophia's voice was steady but filled with emotion. "You've taught me that true strength comes from standing together, even in the face of adversity. You've shown me the power of resilience and the beauty of hope. I'm so proud to walk this path with you." The applause that followed was thunderous, a testament to the lives they had touched. As they danced under the warm glow of the lights, Sophia looked around the room, her heart full. This was more than a wedding. It was a celebration of second chances, of redemption, and of the unshakable bond they had forged. We want to hear from you. If you enjoyed The Fugitives of Fortune, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like to support us in bringing more inspiring stories to life. What part of this story had the biggest impact on you? Was it Liam's journey of redemption, Sophia's sacrifices, or their ultimate triumph together? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your thoughts. Your story ideas matter. Have a story in mind that you'd like to see on this channel? Whether it's about redemption, second chances, or something completely different, drop your suggestions in the comments. Your idea might just inspire our next video. Thank you for being part of our storytelling journey. Your support means the world.